dangerously close.
You know what, man? I need to. I forgot to ask you your last name, DeBlassie.
DeBlassie. Yeah. That's good. Where are you?
I'm in Nashville.
Nashville. All right.
Are you? I know you're in New Mexico, but which part?
New Mexico. Albuquerque.
Albuquerque. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm New Mexico is one of the very few states that I have not visited that I truly desire to visit.
Yeah. Good place. Good place. It's really rainy. We're in the midst of the balloon festival and people from all over the world here, but they've gotten rained out the past 2 days. So,
Oh, that sucks.
but before that, I mean, they had an incredible time. So, I mean, the weather was just perfect. We have these big arching blue skies. We're a mile and a half high here, surrounded by the mountains. So, and volcanoes. So
That's
it's
so cool.
beautiful. It really is beautiful. Yeah.
I'm from Tucson originally. I'm a desert dude. I love the
Oh,
desert.
you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys a little hotter down there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm gonna introduce you.
All righty.
My guest today is Paul DeBlassie III Ph.D. He is a depth psychologist and award-winning author living in his native New Mexico, creating metaphysical thrillers energized with trickster mischief and natural magic. Together with visionary metaphysical novels, he also writes blogs, archetypal essays on traumas, dreams, spirituality, and intuition. Paul's writing is informed by his personal and clinical understanding of the unconscious mind, treating patients in depth psychotherapy. For over 35 years, has inspired stories about human conflict and transformations in the areas of love, relationships, and spirituality. And I just read one of Paul's books. So before we get going, I want to read just a little teeny piece off the back of the book, because I've drawn a lot of my questions from this book. This is from the book Goddess of Everything. In the mystic land of Aztlan del Norte, a realm of supernatural happenings and unexpected turns of fate, psychiatric healer Gabriel de la Tierra encounters evil with the orphanage of the Holy Innocents. Children disappear for no reasons. Children disappear for reasons kept secret by Mother Juana de la Cruz, superior of the nunnery and the orphanage. What's up, Paul?
Hey, it's great to be with you, Doug.
Thank you for thank you for being patient with me stumbling over the introduction.
Sure. It's great to be here.
Man, I have a question I really want to start with.
Mm-hmm.
I had Googled it while I was reading your book, but it's really an important feature, and it's Aztlan. And I was wondering if maybe, because I didn't feel like I got any explanations from Google that I liked, and I was wondering if you could just give a little explanation as to what Aztlan is, like mythologically, historically, etc.
Yeah, Aztlan really is it's an imaginary place. Okay, and it's a spiritual homeland coming up from originally New Mexico was part of Mexico, and so it goes from Mexico up through New Mexico. So right now it's more of an imaginary mythopoeic, I say, homeland, a spiritual homeland to those who are from here. My roots go back here. The latest roots are Italian from Naples 150 years ago, but the New Mexican roots go back hundreds of years. And my grandmother was native indigenous Isla de Pueblo, and that's hundreds upon hundreds of years. So Aztlan is the spiritual homeland that encompasses all of this area that once included what is now Mexico.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's that was what happened. Was I was reading, and I was like, is this like a specific place? Why do I not know this place? Then I was like, okay, so there's more. I guess what you're saying too. There's more than one way to interpret it. Like you can say it's completely mythical, or you could say that it in a way it is Mexican, like historically Mexico.
historically Mexican, and now it's for those of us who are mestizo, which means mixed blood.
Mhm.
You know, I have all sorts of bloods running through me here, and New Mexico is very much its own culture. It's very distinct from Mexico, but yet that myth of Aztlan remains here. And it's a myth of culture that includes everything from food to spirituality that is not organized religion at all. It is a way of seeing self in the world and understanding that there's more to us than what we see, and more to life than what we see. What William James, the father of American psychology, described as the unseen world that governs the world of the everyday and phenomena that happen right before our eyes.
It's interesting you would mention that part, because I was going to follow up with a question, but before I do, I did want to ask. It's just kind of sprung to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a term specifically, maybe, for like the kind of mysticism or spirituality or whatever you might want to call it, religion of Aztlan? Or is it just, or do you? Is that I'm not sure if I asked that question very well.
Yeah. I the distinction that some people agree with, others don't, for me, but it works, is spirituality is different than religion.
Yes.
Religion is organized spirituality. There's an old joke that once religion comes in the front door, spirit leaves out the back.
Yeah.
There's no sense of religion to this. It's a spirituality in which my aunts on my maternal side, my mother, all of the aunts practiced healing, indigenous healing.
Yeah.
Some of them are curanderos. My daughter is a professor of witchcraft, the occult, and gender studies
Oh, that's
at
awesome.
the University of New Mexico. So, and all of my daughters are attuned to the psychic. My son is. They're artists and writers, and we don't practice an organized religion. It's a way of understanding that there is a spiritual world. My son, who lives in New York, read my first book, The Unholy, and it really explores the dark side of religion and its corrupting effects on human beings. That's where spirituality is taken, and it's attempting to get. I'm going to use the word God, okay, and I'll tell you why I use that word. God in a box and control everything, and it can really corrupt human nature, which has a natural sense of the spiritual. It corrupts because huge issues of power and control come in. Like in Goddess of Everything, you have this Mother Superior who to the community is a saint. She's doing these wonderful things for these needy children, but they don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And the drama unfolds, and because of the myth of Aztlan and the supernatural understanding, things are really scary, and weird occurrences take place that are pretty spine tingling, and it all occurs within the context of daily life. And the central phenomena that's true for all of us is whether we can really open up to truth, and even more than truth, to love in our life. And if we can, then we can see through in a much clearer way what's good and what's bad for us, and what affects us in practical ways, to include our spirituality. So there's no religion. It's spirituality. It's a mysticism. My son said, wow, this is a mysticism I was raised with. We were talking about it at the kitchen table. We talked about our dreams and understanding our dreams, synchronous events, intuition. The minute you shake a person's hand, for some reason, this image comes into your mind, and I tell the kids, that's telling you something about this person. I would listen to that. Okay, these gut feelings that we may think are no big deal. Oh no, they are a big deal. Listen to them. And the more you listen to those feelings, those images, your dreams, and you learn the language of that, the more they begin to speak to you. And that's what each of my novels addresses. And Goddess of Everything being the latest one that I'm glad you said you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I will say to a certain extent, haunting. It's
Haunting, yes.
Mother Juana de la Cruz is,
Yes.
it's a terrifying situation, and especially like you were saying, when earlier speaking of like religious authorities that have total control, and especially, and you've heard the horror stories. I won't harp on it, but like, and these are like this takes place in an orphanage. These are
Yes.
like the most helpless people, their children. So
Yes.
very, very scary. I'm not going to put any spoilers in here, but I am going to go so I don't know if I was supposed to read this into it. This may have been completely just my mind seeing things that weren't there, but having your two main oppositional figures in Goddess of Everything, their names are De la Tierra and De la Cruz. Is that kind of a signifier of the contention between organized religion, in this case Catholicism, versus nature-based spiritualism? Is that, or is
Yeah.
that?
Of course, you say Catholicism. I'm careful to,
Yeah. I'm sorry to everyone listening.
yeah,
You never specifically say these are Catholics.
right. I use the word ecclesia Dei, and it's a Latin term meaning God's church. Okay, but it is in New Mexico, so you can pretty much go from there. Okay, and all the bells and whistles that would lead a person to think it considered Catholicism, but it really, my background as a depth psychologist is in treating trauma survivors, specifically those who've gone through religious abuse. My practice is populated by individuals who've been hurt within that context. And yes, you have a definite distinction, don't you? You have the opposition of earth, de la tierra, earth, of the earth, and de la cruz, of religion. And what's natural, what is unnatural, what is good for people, what is generative, and what looks good, but is actually something quite different and quite scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And once again, I'm sorry that I just threw in the word Catholicism, and I had going through the book.
No, it's a good point, Doug, because I've been I haven't on Goddess of the Wild Thing and Goddess of Everything. Each of my novels will in some way really critique religion, because that's my background. I have a background in religious studies, psychology. My writings are in archetypal psychology, spirituality, and the like. In The Unholy, my first novel, which won the International Book Award, you have an evil archbishop. That he is the antagonist. Here, you have an evil mother superior. She is the antagonist. So there's just a definite good and evil. And when it comes to religion itself, in The Unholy, I was critiqued and said, "You're a Catholic basher." I'm not a Catholic basher. Whatever people find meaningful for them and helping them to be a good human being.
Yeah.
And they don't feel oppressed by fear and guilt. And if Catholicism does that for you, it helps you to be a freer and better human being. That's great. Okay. What I'm looking at is the dark side of religion. I treat individuals from Catholicism, Mormonism, Judaism, Sikhism, all sorts of facets of the New Age movement, Protestantism, and there's a dark side to religion, and it's quite frightening. And that's what my books address. So it's I'm coming from what I know best because my background has been Catholic, but I wanted to, the inference is there and it's pretty obvious. But I don't intend to have an anti-Catholic bias. I do attempt to raise some consciousness about the dark side of religion
Yeah.
and offer a critique.
And I'm trying to recall their names correctly. De las Mujeres, I think it's the name of the sect. And you could say possibly it even operates somewhat like a cult. But the fact that you use like a lot of the symbolism of an Abrahamic religion, it's not that. Yeah, I didn't feel like there was any Catholic bashing at all, and also so many cults have used the Abrahamic religion to do. That's what the Branch Davidians were,
Right.
a form of Christianity. So it's and the FBI found it justified to do what they did. So I mean, I guess we could drop it with that.
Yeah, well, no, it's really good because my latest, if you don't mind me just doing a quick
No, go ahead.
side comment, the new novel that I'm writing right now, Seer, the case of the man who lost his soul. Okay, this is also, I've been, colleagues have said, Paul, you line up something to attack in each of your novels. Okay. Here I'm looking, and I do. I think a novel is supposed to offer something novel, something new,
Yeah.
a new perspective on an old idea or an institution. Or Salman Rushdie, for instance, was critiquing the dark side of religion.
Yeah.
Okay, and culture and politics. And there was some huge backlash, and
I can't believe he, after all this time, he just survived a stabbing not that long ago.
yes, it's just incredible. But what's going on here is in my newest novel. I'm taking a look at the New Age movement and the whole metaphysical cult that's developed, and it is a cult. Whether it's individuals having left formal religion, and they range from my age to your age to younger. I am 69, and there's a lot of folks in New Age churches, in yoga, and yoga has become a religion practically. And now I'm a long-time yogic practitioner. I've been practicing yoga for 50 years.
Wow, awesome.
But I'm careful with the groups.
Yeah.
And I'm careful with the culture of it, because that begins to exert its own control and its own dark side. And there is a metaphysical world. You hit this new novel, Seer, the case of the man who lost his soul. It won't be out for another year and a half, but it takes place in Santa Fe directly. And it goes after what's called the New World Order of Consciousness. And boy, things get nasty. And Dr. Ernesto de la Tierra is helping a man who's come to him who claims he's lost his soul. And it all is tied in to New Age religion.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so it's dark side, and soul loss is very real. And we're essentially struggling with soul loss in different ways. And in each of my novels, in Goddess of Everything, here, the protagonist is the son who wants to believe the best about his mother and cannot believe what he's hearing, but yet his wife is saying, it's all around you, Gabriel.
Yeah.
It's all around you, but she can only tell him so much. So it's difficult to see quite often, but he's on the verge of soul loss himself. And a person experiencing soul loss is a reality. Individuals experience it as a malaise, and as they can experience physical symptoms of chronic pain that has no medical basis, and irritation, relationship conflicts, and they've lost a hold of themselves. I call it soul loss. The old term for that with seers and sages is soul loss. So in psychotherapy, when a person begins to understand what's going on in their life, what's caused it, the bad stuff they've inadvertently sold out to, that's soul loss. That's caused soul loss. And as they begin to understand that and clear themselves out of what's bad, what's been destructive for them, and begin to nourish what's good, there's what New Age movements are calling soul retrieval. And they are right. There is a sense of soulfulness coming back. When you and I are exchanging right here, I think we have a nice soul connection.
Yeah.
Okay? Or we might say it's a good vibe.
Yeah. I'm always talking about vibes.
Yeah, it's a good vibe.
Yeah.
It's not, if we didn't have a soulful connection, it'd be falling flat and be real boring.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bored. I think we have nice engagement.
Well, as a matter of fact, you brought up synchronicity earlier, which is one of my absolute. It's something that I'm very in tune with, and this podcast, I just feel so lucky that there's so much synchronicity in it. And now, but it's interesting that your last couple of points, not only one that it set me up perfectly for my next question, which I will ask in just a moment, but I did want to, before I went to that, I wanted to just buttress a statement that you had made about, and I guess just for lack of a better term, just saying New Age, but in that you could mean like yogic style, like cults, or people that, certain types of diets, even like people get into a certain type of diet until it becomes very cult like. But what's happening is also, I had thought about writing something on this, was that it's a gateway or a funnel into a lot of fascism for people. They they start out with something which is completely with the intention of promoting physical health, just like, it's not even about your mind, it's just about your physical health. And the next thing you know, they're on these message boards and on these social media sites saying very, very dangerous and basically flat out fascist statements. Right. and they got there through a diet or an exercise so anyway, I just wanted to chime in with you there. That's something that I truly have seen.
That's really spot on, Doug, because anytime you hit a zealotry in any form, and we can all be prone toward it, and we start to have the answer, and there are no answers in life. There are many answers, and there are answers that evolve. Things work today, but may change tomorrow. There's one thing that's true about life and about all truth, is that it's evolving. There are truths, and it shifts and changes. And that's a wonderful thing. And it's fantastic because it keeps us on our toes. We always have to be willing to see things in a new way. So we hit fascism, there's clear-cut answers. I'm in, you're out, or you're in and I'm out. I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy. And in my novels, although I do work with binaries like that, there is evil and there's good. What constitutes what is evil or wicked, and I pop it out because I write dramatic fiction. I'm not a subtle writer. I don't go with a lot of nuance. It's like, let's get this out there. It's sort of in your face, and people, regardless of everything, just by way of putting things out there, they said that there are triggers for people. So an alert there. This can be a shocking novel, but
parts for sure. It's not like you're not just suspicious that this might be a ill-meaning cult or an ill-meaning nun, that they 100% are practicing dark magic and mutilation and torture. And so
right, you just the intrigue in the novel that I felt writing it, and that I do feel in writing all of my books, and my readers have said, is you just don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
You know who the bad person is, but you just don't know what's going to happen.
This is what I the second part to what I was saying with the synchronicity is that you brought up the novel you're writing now, and you said it was called The Seer. Is that correct?
It's called it's Seer,
Seer.
and
This is oh, go ahead.
it's Seer, and then the subtitle is The Case of the Man Who Lost His Soul. My favorite, and probably the guy standing over my shoulder, I have a couple of them, and inspiring me, is Algernon Blackwood, contemporary of 20th century writer of supernatural tales. He wrote the John Silence stories, Dr. John Silence, and he had 5 cases and Dr. John Silence was a doctor of psychical phenomena. He was an MD who treated individuals with what he called psychical illness, and so I've translated that into what I believe is going to be a series of the Seer, and there are going to be case studies like Freud wrote case studies. The Wolf Man is a famous case study by Freud. So I'll be writing case studies, and these are metaphysical thrillers. Seer, the case of the man who lost his soul, and it comes from clinical practice, but no one person, because I've treated many people who've come to me with saying essentially that they haven't put it in those words. Some have, but the sense of soul loss is there. And the type of people who come to me in practice are open to that sort of language, and they understand that they come from a more of a spiritual orientation. And they, speaking of synchronicity, they find me. I don't accept new patients any longer because I'm going to practice another probably 10 years. I see, so I have a caseload filled with people I need to spend another 10 years with to bring things to closure. But they find me in very synchronistic ways. They don't just don't come from a referral from their physician. For instance, one thing led to another, and then they come into my office and it's a match. Okay.
I am curious, just like at face value, it's easy to just hear the words soul loss and just and kind of get it. But now that I've thought more about it, it almost, I guess because everyone has a different idea of what soul means, and I think that my own personal idea of it seems to me like how would a person be able to come to you and verbalize that and be up and moving around, and what is soul loss? I don't understand. If you're still if you don't have a soul, how are you even a human being?
Yeah, and that's true. A person who's completely lost their soul, they're not even going to make it into my office. But there are people alive. I'm not going to name names here, but everybody will know who I'm talking to. We have politicians now that are utterly psychopathic. Utterly.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so I understand that. So
there is no soul.
Maybe a psychopath or an extreme narcissist would be an example of soul loss of a person who is still functioning. Okay. I guess you know what it is for me. I think what it is I growing up, and even to this day, I think of a soul as being my whole inner being, or my mind even. And so that if I were to lose my soul, wouldn't my body just kind of be on life support? Like,
so, if just one other thing with that, Biden made the comment that was well publicized. He said when he first looked into Putin's eyes, he told his assistant, the man has no soul.
Yeah, that's really spooky.
Yeah. But the people who make their way to my office, if they have no soul, they're never going to come to me. They never want to come to me.
Yeah.
But when they say, I feel like I've lost my soul, or there is, in fact, I just was writing on this yesterday, where I was going into the patient's self-reflection and the therapists, Ernesto de la Tierra's uh, 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 thoughts about this, that what brought him in is that smidgen of human life that remained, that was crying out for help. And the therapist then is having to go to those embers and try to blow life into those and bring warmth back to that person. But a person wouldn't say, I'm suffering from soul loss, doctor, please help me. They're saying, I'm out of it. I'm just, I don't feel like myself. And I haven't felt like myself for weeks or months, or sometimes years. Or sometimes they can say, I feel like I'm losing my mind, or maybe I've lost it. I just don't feel well. That's soul loss.
That makes so much more sense to me. And I think maybe I was having almost a cartoonish idea of the soul physically leaving and going to another place. Maybe when you use the analogy of rekindling a fire, I can see that more. It's almost like soul death, and in that you can bring it back to life. And so,
although it's not dead, see, I mean, that image that you use is fascinating, isn't it? The soul leaving, going to some other place. Maybe, right, Doug? I mean, how do we know? Maybe, I mean, we've had, I'm sure we both had, and the listeners, maybe many listeners have had experiences of looking into somebody's eyes and you're thinking, wow, nobody's there. Nobody's home.
Yeah.
It's like they're vacant.
Yeah.
It's like, I think their soul is left. Whatever whatever that means. I would not want to look into Trump's eyes.
Yeah. No, absolutely not.
You know, it's like you'd be lost in a black abyss somewhere. You know?
Yeah. Okay. And I get that too. You know, because I've had the experience, certainly, where I've looked into the eyes of someone who has a very serious alcoholism or drug addiction, whatever. And, you know, when they're just like, for lack of a better word, when they're really, really fucked up, you know, and you look into someone's eyes, and they're not there. Like,
they're not there.
You're talking to, like, I've had this up before where I've been talking to a friend that I've known for years, and they're not home.
Right.
I don't know if that's equivalent to what we're discussing.
Yeah. You know,
maybe that's a like a miniature version of it happening or something.
Right. And I think that's good though, because soul loss, we're using terms, concepts that tries to best capture the feeling, the experience. You know, when I was taking patients, you know, especially in the early years of my practice, practicing addicts and or alcoholics, severe alcoholics would find their way in, and I'd say, I don't feel like I'm the one to treat you right now.
Yeah,
because I would like you to get yourself sobered up or clean, get into NA or AA, and if you can do that for a year, then come back and check with me, because I want all that stuff cleared out. There's too much debris and there's too much numbing, and the soul loss has occurred, but the drugs and the alcohol serve to numb any psychic ability for insight so much that it would be like pouring water on granite, and I can't help the person. So they need to get into a program that helps them to begin to become a little bit human again, and to show some sincerity that they want to get well. And then we can start blowing on those embers.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I just realized, because we did take a little tangent there from where I was earlier when I was saying that we were set up so perfectly for this question, but it's still it's when you were talking about the seer, and that's what this is actually drawing once again from Goddess of Everything. But speaking of seer, it's there's a lot regarding seers and vision quests, and these are people that are just naturally psychically in tune to be able to achieve transcendental mental states.
Right.
And also, you reference Carl Jung a few times in the book.
Right.
And I was just going to ask, it's just your opinion as a psychologist on what it means, or how. I'm not sure how best to phrase this, but what is your opinion on achieving altered states of consciousness meant to be used as a tool? Like how, like in the book, like for instance, Consuela, who's the wife of Gabriel de la Tierra, oftentimes her visions helps him, and his visions of his old therapist, also another kind of father figure that's kind of more ethereal, guide him. I'm sorry if that question was kind of all over the place, but
no. It's I love the question because these are natural phenomena. Your dreams, your visions, and visions come. They can be waking visions. I'm in therapy with a patient, or you and I could be talking right now. I could have a vision, which would mean for me, it's not interfering with me seeing you. It's a mind image that comes, and it's very pronounced. It's just not a fleeting thought or a wisp of this or that. It's just something very pronounced. I don't have anything right now on you, Doug. But
okay. I was like, oh.
but when those come, you have my wife and I speak about our dreams every day. I have dreams about my patients. On Sunday night, I'll begin to dream about my patients and what they're going to need. And sure enough, those situations come up. I don't tell them I dreamt about this and this is what we need to do, but I implement and in an as empathically as possible way what will be of help to them. But yeah, these are these tools. Maybe not tools, I'd say, but they're natural feeling states. They're natural feelings. Dreams are natural, okay? If we take them seriously, they'll speak to you. You don't need the complex language of Freudianism or Jungianism even. Jungianism can become its own cult. I have Jungian pals and I josh them all the time. I say, Jung said, thank goodness I'm Jung and not a Jungian.
Yeah.
I said, what do you guys, you folks have made a cult of this, you're Jungian. But it should be a natural flow so that everyone learns their dreams can speak to them practically. When you have an intuition, listen to it and watch what happens. When synchronous events come, and the shamanic world talks about it as shamanic messages. For instance, let's say I'm driving down the street, and I'm thinking that, I think I'm going to go this way, and I want to see this person because I haven't seen him in a while. And horrible image, but a pigeon smashes against my windshield. I wouldn't do that. That is a shamanic message. Do not go that way. This is a bad, we say it's a bad omen.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Or I've had simple things happen where I'm thinking about, and it's usually people related. Sometimes it's other things. I'm thinking about doing a book project, but I'm not sure about it. And I turn around and my elbow brushes against my favorite coffee mug, and it breaks. And I think, yeah, okay, got the message. Okay. And people might make fun, but that's a synchronous moment.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're sensitive, those things will continue to happen. Are they tools? Maybe, but I think that they're messages. It's more of our relationship to the spiritual world. C.G. Jung spoke about it as the collective unconscious. Other facets of psychology speak about it as the transpersonal psyche. So however is good for you to think about it, I think it's life. It's life. You get life messages, is what I say. Listen to them. It's intuition, it's dreams, it's visions. Dreams will speak very clearly. I've had dreams 2 days before the podcast that for some reason I need to close down this podcast and not do it.
Mhm.
So I write a note and da 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 da. And later on, I find out something about that podcast. And it's like, I'm really glad I wasn't on it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so the dream comes, and why it didn't come before, I don't know. I don't know. But it came when it came, you know? So I get guidance. It's very practical, and it's about people, it's about situations, it's about personal guidance in life. I've had dreams that I should take on no new patients, that I have enough energy in me to see the patients through that I do. And then I'll close up practice in 10 years or so, because it takes that long. I do depth therapy. It's
Yeah.
long-term intensive work. And then I'll devote myself full time to writing. Right now I write on the weekends. So yeah. And they guide, by the way, you know, my dreams guide each book. Each there's inspiration for not only each book, but each scene. Many of the images are images that have been floating through my mind in the dream world for months or years. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And yeah, I think too, like something that's common in my life is I have deja vu very frequently. And I think a lot of it is actually because I forget my dreams fairly rapidly after I wake up. But I think so often what it is I'll be doing something that I've already dreamt that I did. However, I don't often see it as a tool, because it's kind of like one of those things where oftentimes synchronicity is just ambivalent. It's not a directive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not a directive, but it is telling you something's important. Pay
Yeah.
attention. It's a pay attention message.
Yeah, that's how I like to look at it. I've always thought of synchronicity as almost like when you're coming in for a landing on an airplane at night,
Sure.
and the tarmac's lit up. The synchronicity, that's the lights on the
Yes.
runway
Oh,
for the
yeah.
airplane. So you're like, okay, I'm
Good.
headed. This is where I should be landing. Whether or
Perfect.
not it's not telling me why I should be landing there, or what I'm going to get, what's going to happen when I reach this new city, but the plane can safely land here. Maybe that's
right.
one way to look at it.
Yes.
I wanted to bring up one more thing, that's because when you had said when Carl Jung made the joke that he's like, thank God I'm not a Jungian,
Right.
and it made me just flash back to when I had briefly gotten into Nietzsche, and and his very similar thing. He's like, please don't make a religion out of, or a philosophy, a religion out of my philosophy or whatever. And then of course he died, and his sister took all of his work and gave it to the Nazis, and they made it into basically the Nazi religion.
Really twisted it. Yeah. Or it's like Bob Dylan says, don't follow no leaders and watch your parking meters.
Yeah. This is something I really wanted to get into, is the fact that you use a lot of animal symbolism, which I love, particularly. Yes. And I don't know if this is just this one book that I read, Goddess of Everything, but coyotes are very prominent in that. I happen to personally love coyotes. I know a lot of people don't. I like them a lot. Where do you draw your inspiration for that?
Well, New Mexico.
Yeah.
New Mexico, and my knowledge of archetypal images, symbolism, mythology. Coyotes are trickster figures. They can be good, they can be bad, but they're always a symbol in literary narrative that something tricky's at work. So pay attention.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Because I got a little there's so much construction here in Nashville, and they're destroying all the green space. I don't want to get into it. It depresses me a little bit to get too far into it, but it's pushing so much of the wildlife, I live in a very urban area, and I've got unfortunately there's a creek beside my house. So I get some of the most wildlife here, but I got a little family of coyotes, and they love to hide in that creek bed, like, or in the little area. So at night they come out in my yard, and I always know they're there because my dog lets me know. And I go out, and they're all just walking around my lawn looking cool.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something. Maybe there's some trickster magic afoot right now, because I got a little family of coyotes decided to move in next door to me.
Boy, see, now we just spoke about shamanic messages, and now you're telling me about this, about you. You want my comment?
Yeah.
I think they may be spirit animals for you and alerting you to the fact that you too are a mischief maker, and enjoy that in your life and enjoy that about yourself.
I will. I intend to enjoy that to the fullest. So thank you, and thank you, coyotes. If you can hear me through the window,
That's right.
they're right outside my office, I'm sure.
Right.
Uh, this is another thing drawing from the book, but also just this is something I have experienced in my life multiple times. I find it to be just as real as just as real as the ground beneath my feet. You describe certain places and locations as having the psychic remains of trauma and evil. What do you think about places in the world where people have seemed to unanimously agree that sort of energy is in a location?
They're right. They're right. And it just depends too, where I've been to places that are washed out, but still people are visiting and they're oohed and awed by I remember I'm thinking of oh gosh, decades ago, we were on a family vacation to San Diego, and we were turning the corner, and they had a line going into this haunted house. And I typically don't like those things, but
Yeah.
decided to go in, and the place had been haunted, evidently. I think, but there's absolutely nothing there. There's no psychic vibe there at all, at
Yeah.
all. However, my wife and I were in Ireland, okay, in a lovely little village that at one point had been the village surrounding a castle that was now an Airbnb, because the original owners were there. And we walked into the castle. I didn't know anything about it. And I said, whoa, this place is haunted. And the entryway was lovely. Okay.
Yeah.
It was haunted. And they were showing us around. And as we went up the stairs, the wallpaper was curling, and the wood was beginning to rot. And I said, ooh, bad signs. And we went further up into this bedroom, and I didn't want to go in the bedroom.
Oh
There was
yeah.
a bad presence in there. And the group went in. So my wife and I went in, and there was one of those mirrors that is on a swivel. It's a body length mirror, and so a person can look in. And I said, whatever it is in that mirror. And then and I just shook it off because it was a terrible, and the mirror was sort of warbled and aged. Okay, so it wasn't a clear image in that mirror. And the woman went on, and as we were leaving, she said, oh, and by the way, this was a little girl's room. And I won't go into the whole story there, she said, but she was, I'll just say, lost, she said. And
Whoa.
I said, oh my God. And that night, I had a nightmare about that little girl, and she was shrieking at me that I was never to enter that room again, that this was her home, her castle. No
Wow.
one should be here but her. And she was shrieking from within that mirror. And she haunted that home.
Yeah.
Something very bad happened. Okay. So, yeah, these places are real. Then you get places where bad things have happened. We were I'd never been to Berlin. We visited Berlin, and it's so sad on the other side of the wall.
Oh yeah.
Still that sadness that lingers. And you visit
To this day.
to this day, and where people were tortured. You visit the Nazi torture chambers there, and oh, these places are haunted to this day. It is thick in the air,
Yeah.
and this is very bad, but important to visit. it's seared in my memory, and that is genuine spirit. It has not been washed out. There are haunted homes. They are real. And I mean, those places need, if it's a bad spirit, all old homes have have spirits in them. You know,
Oh
if
yeah,
the
I used
you
to
know,
move around a lot, so I lived in many homes, and there was one in particular, and there's at no point in my life will anyone ever convince me that I was not living in a haunted house,
mhm.
because I was convinced the entire time I was there. It's been years, and nothing in my life has happened that would change my mind about the fact that I felt like I was living in a haunted house. I mean, the things that would occur, the things I would see, things I would hear, and just it
That's right.
was the
And
energy of the home.
it is the energy of the home. And you have in Goddess of Everything, there's that scene where Gabriel is waiting for his mother, and Gabriel is the head of the psychiatric institution that takes care of these children on behalf of his mother's orphanage. Okay,
Yeah,
he doesn't know what's happening, but he's sitting there and the wooden chair, and he's starting to wonder. He feels, because he's very intuitive about everything. He's a healer. He's very intuitive, but he can't see clearly when it comes to his mother. And all of a sudden, he has these images of children and the wailing, the crying, and he doubts that image. And he sees on the oak chair scratch marks and indentations, as though from a hand, and nails having dug in like claws, and an individual being punished. And he doubts that. And when he does, he's standing a bit away from the chair. The chair moves.
yeah, and
You
yeah,
know,
and he can't move the chair himself.
no,
The chair is immovable, except through its own volition.
except through its own volition. Exactly. So that's a little message.
Yeah. This is uh I almost wanted to skip this, but I feel like it's kind of important. It's important to the book, and the only reason I was going to think about maybe skipping over was just because you had said that some people had accused you of Catholic bashing. But this question is not specific to Catholicism. As a matter of fact, I have a great aunt who is a Catholic nun.
Mhm.
She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. Like just like you said, individuals, and she's one of the greatest people I know. So it's not. I'm not over here Catholic bashing either,
Right.
but there's a lot in the book, and it is relative to this harsh aversion to sex or sexuality, or for a lot of these kids in the orphanage are adolescent, they're going through puberty, and they're severely punished for uh you know becoming adults uh sexually and whatever. And like I had said earlier, like you said, it's triggering, but there's like some mutilation type events that happen. What and I don't want to put you on the spot here with like a crazy question that's I'm sure people have been trying to hack at for years, but what do you think is behind this the organized religions treating sex and sexuality as though it's some kind of major sin, or that it's dirty, or that it's fucked up, when it's this is how, as a species, this is how we continue to exist. This is our survival depends on. It's like breathing and eating.
Right. Just quickly going back to the idea, or the joke, I told you about, when religion comes in the front door, spirit leaves out the back. There's in the Brothers Karamazov, where Jesus has been imprisoned by the Cardinal of Seville, Spain, because he's come back to the earth, and the Cardinal's pissed, and he
Oh
throws
yeah.
him in the dungeon, and he comes down, and the Cardinal does, to the dungeon, and the Cardinal says to Jesus, he said, "Why are you back? We've gotten what you've said, and we've made it for the people, and we are helping them, and you are here to ruin that." And the whole story is about the fact that Jesus was about helping people to be free and learn to love one another.
Yeah.
And the story, as the story goes, Jesus sheds a tear, the Cardinal opens up the gate, he leaves Seville, Spain, and has never been seen there again. You know,
Is is
so
is, is that
it's like
Dostoevsky?
what's that?
Is that Dostoevsky?
Dostoevsky
Okay, yeah, he's
and
on
brothers.
brand.
Yeah, and what happens here is that you get what's natural, and what's natural then becomes then controlled. In this case, sexuality. And Jesus was never. There's nowhere. Jesus does not speak of the need for celibacy, for instance. He did not require that of his apostles. His
Yeah,
best friend was a prostitute, Mary Magdalene.
yeah,
And he was a very, I mean, he was an open, free spirit. But you have what's natural, and if it's thwarted or repressed, then it comes out sideways and it becomes pathological. And so the church and many churches, not just it's happened in Hindu and yoga circles, it's happened in Protestantism, it's happened in Catholicism, where you have the repression of sexuality, and then you see the dark expression of sexuality, because you
yeah.
can't fool Mother Nature. You can't fool Mother Nature. She'll those human energies, if they're not allowed proper growth and development, will be expressed in a twisted and destructive manner.
And I guess, like we were saying, this is not spirituality. This is a business.
This is business.
This is it's like who's that fucking guy? Joel Olstein.
Yeah.
He's got multiple private jets. He lives in the largest palace in America, possibly, all this stuff. And it's like, when did Jesus say that you should do that?
You may, I'm sure you saw The Godfather, and I think it was the third Godfather, the last one. You get Pacino in there, and he's meeting with the cardinal.
Oh yeah.
And this is based on a true story, the Vatican financial scandal. And he's meeting with the cardinal, and because Pacino goes to Sicily, and he goes to the Sicilian Godfather, and he said, "Is there any man of integrity within the church?" And he said, "There's one cardinal." And he goes to the cardinal's palace, and the cardinal is there, and indeed he seems to be a good man. And because Pacino goes to him and he says, "This is business." He said, "This is all business." He said, "All of this."
Yeah.
And the cardinal points out his fountain, and he tells Pacino, he's an old man. Pacino isn't as old, so Pacino listens to him, even though he's this mafioso godfather.
Yeah.
And he goes to and he tells Pacino to go into the fountain and pull out a stone. And he has this stone, and he tells Pacino, that stone has been in that fountain, in that water, he said, for over 500 years. And the cardinal says, "Now crack that stone against that pathway." And so Pacino gets it, and it's a granite pathway. Pacino gets a stone and smashes it, and it cracks in half. And he says, "What do we have?" And he says, "It's a stone." He said, "What is the outside of the stone?" And he said, "It's wet." He said, "What is the inside?" He said, "It's dry." He said, "So we are surrounded by the teachings of Christ, but inside it's dry." He
Oh
said,
wow.
It's business."
Yeah. Oh man.
How's that?
Those movies are so, I can't wait to, I'm gonna make a ton of spaghetti and sit down. That's what I always do. That whenever I watch The Godfather, which I've done a million times, I always cook a bunch. To the best of my ability, I cook what I believe to be Italian food. I know that any real Italian person came to my house, they would be very, very disappointed with what I make. But
maybe not.
I mean, I'm a good cook. I'm not gonna lie, man. I've worked in fine dining. I know what I'm doing.
My daughter lives in Italy. She's an Italian citizen, and yeah, you have all types of Italian cooking. So,
just this is just kind of, well, I mean, it's not unrelated, because I know that you draw a lot of your inspiration from New Mexico, the myths of New Mexico, the legends. And I was wondering, do you have any particular myth or legend that originates in New Mexico that is your favorite?
Myth or legend? Did you say, or myth or?
Yeah, myth or legend. I mean, however you want to, a story of. Does that make sense? I mean, like maybe just kind of like a fable, even. I don't really truly understand the spirituality at depth of the.
I think New Mexico is a story. I think New Mexico is a myth. To me, New Mexico is in my bloodlines. Probably Aztlan, the mythopoeic realm. It's to me, New Mexico is a metaphysical realm. So I look out my window now, I can see the Sandia Mountains, which are uh, uh, they are the guardians of the city. I look to the west, and they're the volcanoes. Um, I look to the north, and I see Sandia or Santa Fe, and it's the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I live in a myth, in a mythic place. We were thinking at one point of moving to Boulder. I had opportunities there, and I remember talking to people there, and my old aunts from the Isleta Pueblo called out to me that they were deceased, called out to me, and she said, and they were saying, "This is your land. These are your people. You are to stay here." And so that was that. I
Yeah.
didn't mess with them. So I wouldn't say there's one story. Uh, I think New Mexico for me is a spiritual homeland, and it is an ongoing and evolving story of life and of living, of continuing to learn within this specific locale. We have to me, we've traveled a lot. Maybe the closest to New Mexico that I've sensed is some old European cities that have retained their sense of identity. Um, so New Mexico itself, the best answer I could give you is it is its own
That's a
story.
great answer. I love the answer. As a matter of fact, I think that we should send this podcast episode to the New Mexico Department of Tourism, because that was such a
Sure,
such
sure.
a glowing review of a beautiful state. And like I had said earlier, I don't know if we were recording yet, but it's one of the very few. I've been almost everywhere in America, but I have not made it somehow to New Mexico, a place that I think that I would absolutely love to go. Specifically, Albuquerque, Santa Fe. They all sound like really cool places,
Albuquerque,
especially
Santa Fe, Taos,
or
uh,
just the desert. I'd like to just go out and
it's lovely.
get out in the
Yeah.
desert, see some mountains, see some mesas. So
I did my just I don't want to take up too much time with this, but I did my residency at Northwestern Medical School, and we used to have some kids that we treated there, but they would take them on trips to New Mexico as part of their psychiatric recovery, and into the desert to learn survival skills. And these were rough street kids that knew the streets of downtown Chicago better than any mobster in downtown Chicago did. These kids ran in and out of alleys and up and down buildings, and knew the routes and the stairways and the ways out and in. But they came out to the desert, and it freaked them out. They said it was too big, it was scary, and they
yeah.
would lie on the desert floor and not want to leave. They had to have it because of the expansiveness. Because as I describe in the book, in all of my books, the sky arches overhead, and it's a turquoise blue sky, and it's this canopy, and it stretches from horizon to horizon. I can see 100 miles in either direction.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Oh man, next place when I have the choice of where I'm going, I'm going to choose New Mexico. Uh, Paul, man, I guess I'm not gonna tell you. We were
Yes.
getting dangerously close to
All
the
right. All right.
lightning
All right.
round.
Yeah. All right. I don't
Quick
know what
rule,
that is, but okay.
quick rules. Well, I'm going to tell you the rules. Okay, this is the game section of the podcast. This is how we always end it. Oftentimes it's a little silly. This one's kind of silly. This is very pop culture. And also, this was written by co-producer Colleen. Thank you so much, co-producer Colleen, for writing the lightning round. I had told her that your book was scaring me a little bit while I was reading it. So, and also this is spooky season, so she made a kind of a Halloween style lightning round, which will be good. This will be good for when this comes out and everything like that. The rules are, I'm going to say the question. You've got no time to think. Gut reaction. First thing that pops in your mind, that's the answer.
Absolutely.
I totally understand if not every single one of these is something that you've watched before. These are, I think, all movies. But these are, honestly, man, these are myths versus myths, really. These are modern American myths versus modern American myths. And it is who would win in a duel. You ready to play?
Sure.
I have a feeling you're going to win. Michael Myers versus Freddy Krueger. That's been done.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Oh, can't outdo Freddy, man.
You can't, because Freddy can get into Michael's dreams.
That's right. I mean, how do you do? You can't do better than that, you know.
She wrote the next one. She wrote the guy in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. What is his name?
Don't know.
Frankfurter?
I don't know. I watched it. It's just been so long ago. I don't know.
Anyway, we'll just call him the guy in the Rocky Horror Picture Show versus Elvira.
I don't know. I'll go with the guy. I don't know.
I love that actor. He played Pennywise.
Okay.
In it. Okay, this is a good one. Jack Torrance, that's from The Shining, versus Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, well, and The Shining, of course. Steve gets the buzz going, man.
I mean, Jack Nicholson. Wow.
Yeah.
But you know, that was Danny Elfman's voice doing Jack Skellington. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
What's good here? Okay. She keeps using people, but not okay. The Girl in the Ring versus Carrie.
Oh God. I mean, you can't. I mean, we got the same thing happening here when King dips into the supernatural. I mean, and you get some girl just blinging things out, and they're gone just because of the rage coming out of the center of her forehead. That's hard to outstrip.
Yeah, I too am a huge Stephen King fan. So I'm gonna, honestly, I'll just throw it to him whenever he's around. Ooh, here's a good one. Beetlejuice versus Pennywise.
I don't know. See, some of these things I've never gotten into.
Oh, so you never saw it?
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, you should see the new one. The old one kind of sucks.
Oh, really? Really? Tell me.
Okay, well, the new one came out in 2 parts. I suggest you watch the chapter 1. I don't feel like you have to watch chapter 2. Chapter 1, really, really, really good. Cinematography, just amazing. Acting's amazing. I just loved it. And that's, more Stephen King magic. All right, last one. Hannibal Lecter versus Dexter.
Oh my gosh, I love them both, but I mean, Hannibal the Cannibal is just the dude.
Yeah.
So is Dexter, but I mean, just Hannibal is just a real connoisseur of what he does.
Wouldn't that be just an incredible crossover movie though? Because Dexter hunts serial killers. Hannibal Lecter, greatest serial killer of all. I shouldn't say greatest serial killer of all time. That's a terrible thing to say.
No, right. I just I haven't been able to bring myself to do Dahmer because somehow that just doesn't work for me. Hannibal does.
Yeah, I don't even want to look when I turn on Netflix. I don't even like looking at the thumbnail of Dahmer.
Yeah,
fucking freaks me out.
It's like
so depressing.
Oh.
And then now that I've learned so much more about it, it's even worse.
Well, the interesting thing about Dexter and Hannibal to me, I think, is that there's a redemptive element in their personality, right?
Yeah, both of them.
I mean, Hannibal, I remember that wonderful scene where he's seen a patient and the patient gets a Kleenex and blows their nose. Okay. And there's a trash can right there. but the patient puts the wadded up, dirty Kleenex on the sofa. And I thought, ooh, should not have done that. So he takes it because, I mean, to Hannibal, that is indicative of a person who's not only rude, but is lacking the basic human integrity that deems them fit to exist.
Yeah.
He takes care of business.
There's that other one, the one he was in with I'm drawing a blank. The guy from Fight Club, Edward Norton. The one he did with Edward Norton, where it's part of the reason why they catch him, I think, is he's a huge fan of the symphony and like I think Vienna, and like the second chair flautist is bothering him because he says he's ruining the. So he kills the second chair flautist of the Vienna, I think Vienna, but of the symphony, doesn't matter, and then feeds him to the board of directors of the symphony at a dinner at his house.
Hey, I mean, it's eco-friendly, I guess, recycle,
All right. Well,
it's hard to beat Hannibal.
Thank you for playing the lightning round with me. I think you're a resounding winner. But Paul, I've got one last question to ask you. It's the most important question of the entire podcast, and that is, where can people find you, find your books, just socials, all that good stuff, man?
Yeah, Paul DeBlassie III.com is my website. And there are links there, but you can also go to Amazon, put in my name and the book. There are buttons on my website that'll take you to the unholy, goddess of the wild thing, goddess of everything. And I'm on Twitter, P DeBlassie III, and Instagram, P DeBlassie III, and TikTok, P
awesome.
DeBlassie III. Okay.
And yeah, everybody, if you're already following me, I will have Paul tagged in all my socials as well if you want an easy route to scoot through. Man, Paul, a pleasure finally getting to speak to you in person, man. This is really eye-opening, man. I had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. It was fantastic. Really enjoyable. Thank you for this time.